It's a very low turnout. I know Kenyans will normally wait until last minute to come out. So your last minute now is now because we are closing on 2nd of November.
So this last minute, from the beginning, when we had a sluggish start, the commissioners kept saying that, Kenyans are last minuters and we expect to get a huge amount, huge numbers towards the end. Yesterday morning, one of the commissioners was in one of the interviews on our show and said, even that last minute rush that they expected is not there this time round. So you've both said 2007 worked well, 2013 worked well. What did we do? And you've talked about Vijana Tugutuke in 2007. 2013 came just after post-election violence, but still they were able to cop up quite a considerable number of new voters into their list. Yeah. So what is the disconnect here, Mugambi?
So the disconnect is as follows. In 2013, we had a new constitution. There's a fresh promise that things would change, that the election managers would give us an election that's free, fair, credible, that politicians now would be held accountable. Remember, there was a sea change. So you don't need to market too much. And then the political class was invested in that election because some of them had to survive the ICC process. So all those added up to huger numbers. Even now, I tell you, if IBC engage civil society, engage business community, donors, religious groups, you would find easily between 1.5 and 2 billion extra shillings by 3 days after that engagement. Because people just need to believe that this is fundamental to change for the business community. Of course, it's fundamental to change. They're the ones who are crying about high debt, high taxation. Of course, all of us want to believe. But if you're being treated like you're begging, like you are outsiders, you're not being treated as partners, and that's what they are saying. You don't treat me like you own the place. Treat me like a shareholder. So talk to me as a shareholder in a language I understand, through people I understand. Then, big step that was missed by ABC, explaining to the youth why they must vote. I come from a human rights background. And as Joshua said, it's based on Article 1, Article 38, Article 91, which all tell you your vote, kura yako, haki yako.
It's your right.
Now, if you sleep on your rights, who do you think will come and give you your rights? You see, we've changed the narrative. If you sleep on your rights, if you don't vote, the same old nonsense of broken promises goes on. If you don't vote, the same old nonsense of bad roads, lack of water, high taxes, high debt. You make people see what is in it for them. Has that happened? At least as far as I know, and I am very intimately a part of elections and governance. That conversation was never initiated by ABC, not by government, not by political parties. In fact, political parties are saying, come out because my opponent has no high numbers. When has being in government helped the people at the bottom? In fact, those are the ones who complain the most, that we elected someone, he told us not to let him down, and cynicism is based on the fact that you create asymmetry in terms of ownership.
Right.
That there are owners and then there's the rest of us. What you create is shareholding. So the methodology, the content, and then the outcomes improve.
One of the commissioners, Changwon, spoke on, I think, Sunday, and said that they're hoping that this particular process will be extended in colleges and universities, that he visited one and could see long queues. So then the other argument is we are conducting enhanced voter registration exercise when the bigger chunk of the young people are in institutions. Yes. But then you'll tell them that then they will have to go vote in the village. How do we bridge that?
Yes, as my brother Mugambi has illustrated very well, on the unhappiness by the youth of this country. Allow me to illustrate and go back, because facts don't lie, they just speak. In 2013 elections, the campaign was centered around promises to the youth of this country. And you remember very well how the youth of this country were promised the 6 billion in case there was not going to be a rerun. And of course, you can see the vote mobilization that was done in that election year. Where is the 6 billion? Can the youth now connect to that promise? It's nowhere. It's neither here nor there. I mean, we can't trace it and say This was the life promise that you are given in this particular election year. And when you look at it very critically, from 2007, even from previous elections, the language of campaigns in this country have been made to be youth-friendly. I think in 2007...
We're even seeing that now.
Yes, even in 2007, you know, the language that was used then, because the youth were, as my brother Mugambi is saying, that artists are so powerful in terms of mobilizing the youth. Look at the language of unblockable. You know, that was so resonating with the youth. And the politicians hijacked this. Even this language of hustling, I know my brother here was joking with me that he no longer used that hustling. But who coined this? The youth. So the politicians have also come again to hijack it. And I'm saying this without any attack of anyone. Even the Gutuka, you know, narratives around there. So I think it has reached a time where now the youth of this country have realized that, wait a minute, I think it is about putting us in the box, and there's nothing for us in that box. It is about a club of people who would just use a language to woo us in a particular direction, but there's nothing that is good for us. But as you ask that, what can we do differently from these observations that we are seeing now here? I think we should go back to the drawing board and say the elections in this country is actually the axis of development for our country, because that is where we begin by having people who are going to determine the kind of the laws through the parliament, the different legislatures that we have, whether it's the county assembly, the national assembly, and the senate. Because those are people we put there on our behalf. They legislate, they oversight, and they represent us. And if we don't think carefully of the quality of the people that we put in these houses, we will never get the value of our vote. So we must rethink and say, this vote is about our lives. It is not about the politician's life to ascend to political office. It is about us and not any other person. It's about our country and the generations that are to come, whom we are supposed to prepare a good place for them, where they will always remember us that we made good decisions. So it's not about giving up on our country, but it is about rethinking about the course on what we can do better as Kenyans, regardless of age and regardless of where we come from in this country.
And that's why I ask Joshua, even if we rethink, even if we follow them to the virtual spaces, even if we use these artists to communicate to them on the importance of voting or registering as voters, or even being engaged in this electoral process, our state of affairs remains as is. Will you still cop up the numbers you hope for?
Yes, why not? Why not? When Kenyans, if they are determined, like now, for instance, let me give an example. There was a year in this country when anger struck the northern part of this country, and you remember how Red Cross mobilized us and how much amount of money did we raise? It was not about having Kenyans just to remove money that was idle from somewhere. 10 shillings, 5 shillings, and you can imagine the kind of the resources that Kenyans pulled for the sake of the northern part of this country to fight hunger. It is the same cause. It is the inspiration that we need for our people in order to come out and say we are owning this process, we are participating, we are not being prevented from any kind of accessibility to information or any right that we are supposed to exercise. And at the end of it all, we would want to see results and fruits of the same. So if that, and of course my brother here was mentioning around the enlightenment of the voter. Yeah. Because if you make the person to be knowledgeable, that I'm acquiring this status of registering as a voter, it's not even just the end. Because if my details are in the voters register, there will be an opportunity to come and verify my details of the voters register. So I must come out and say, are my details the same as it is appearing in my national identity card or my valid passport, so that I'm eligible to come and vote during the election, you know, that kind of stuff. Then I think the last bit is this. The citizen is supposed to be enabled to know that as I exercise my democratic role in the ballot, by casting the ballot, the outcome of that, casting of the ballot must be a reward whereby I'm having people who will come and serve me, not people who will come and desert me, as we've seen in the past elections.
Mugambi, your thoughts on that?
Yes. You see, and I like the term Joshua used, reward. So, when you're talking to the youth, if they see a reward, they're coming. How do you know that? How do the betting companies make money?
The reward system.
You go into Fuliza so that you can bet. You go into Tala and the small apps. Apathy is based on A, ignorance, and the fact that you cannot see a reward. And reward can be both negative or positive. As we said, if the message is by not voting, mutakaa kwa hizo masafa. The same problems you had yesterday, right? Or by voting tomorrow, you will get one of them is promising bottom up, or the other one is promising 6,000 for the lowest of the low. If you can show them that they're coming out, because you see people engaging in debt. So, and I keep on saying this, what IBC, for me, the challenge they've had is that they took the cattle to the river. They did not explain to the cattle that by drinking that water, it's a life and death situation. And that's not hard. It's not hard. Because the thirst comes from the first sip. And if the first sip comes from the influence of a cow, that's someone you trust. Yeah. I'm not even sure who the big influencers in this country are, but in the digital era, it will happen. Most likely it's Eric Omondi or whomever and you pick a number of them that speak the language of this youth. Language is very important. You do not want them to feel patronized. And that's why I'm very hesitant to blame the victim. The youth, we have not told our stories of success. They normally hear about Vijana Tukutuke. They actually had no clue what then it achieved. Because of the youth voting, the numbers meant that those who had promised change were at the table negotiating. Yes, maybe they didn't get the result you actually wanted, but there was change. And because of that negotiation, you got a new constitution. You got that Mkatenusu government. If you actually look at it objectively, is the most, in terms of progressive change, yes, that came from the youth. My last point about the youth is the following. Change in Kenya has always come with a youth generation. So you'll hear about, for example, the Momo generation, or the independence, the Uhuru generation, the young Turks. They were called young. Why? Why were they called young? Tugutuke was young, right? He's talking about even 2013. This so-called hustler is young. Why do you think hustler is so popular? Because they're speaking the language. But the youth themselves mobilize and say, we can't live like this anymore. There is that reward has been triggered in their minds. It's a consciousness. It is not money. Then
I wonder, will this reflect in 2022 polls?
Now,
general apathy, do you expect
so what it tells me is, if we continue doing, it's Einstein. Insanity is doing the same thing, the same way,
again, expecting
a different result. Right now, the only people who can do, under the Constitution, the mandate to carry out voter registration is IBC. If they think by doing what they did in this enhanced period, you get change, I am afraid it will not work. If they change tack, they wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, let's talk. Let's talk to these communities. Let's talk to these sectors. Let's engage Kenyans. The resources they're crying about will happen instantly. The youth that they want will come instantly. Yeah. As I said, if I have a concert in Nyayo Stadium today, and I tell the youth of Nairobi, those in Kibra, those in Kangware, those in Kangemi, those in Mathare, Dandora, I tell them, listen, all you need to do, come with your voter's card or your ID, and we'll register you there. Are you telling me you will not get the sizes we saw in 2007? I am not persuaded, by that, the denial of that. What I see is that on that day, a Saturday most likely, it will be packed. Why? In fact, there was a cartoon the other day that youth, they're not going for COVID vaccinations. Youth, you know, we have told them to go and register, they're not going. But as soon as our president opened up the clubs, the youth are where? Why are we missing that lesson? It's not apathy. These things they find rewarding. Partying rewards the youth. It is so simple. I myself, because I've been in this before, I totally appeal to IBC. Open your eyes. Let the scales drop. Actually, we're not even trying to be critical. We're trying to be helpful. We're offering you something constructive. We're giving you examples of how it could work. But no one, and they know my number. Jemkati knows my number. So does Marianne, and a number of commissioners. No one has talked to some of us who have been there before. I'll take the blame in a certain way. This narrative of success has never been told. And that's our fault as civil society, as media. I will own that. But for heaven's sake, let's not do the blame game of it's you, no, it is what can we do before February 2022. And it can happen, I assure you.
Let's take a look at what some of the our respondents here or our audiences are saying on our social media platforms. Nyedia says, their mode of registration is outdated and archaic. M-Pesa agents register millions within a short period of time at a low cost. Make it digital. You've spoken to...
I've spoken to that. We've spoken to that. It is, again, imagination. Imagination. Understanding the demographic.
Wanjohi Wagivinje says, hi Akisa, the lethargy and apathy in voters' registration is because of, one, lack of serious commitment from leaders to solve key issues affecting Kenyans, and two, Kenyans have been taken for a ride for way too long and expect even low turnouts even in election day. Joshua, you expect the same? Low voter turnout in election day?
No, the dynamics are most likely to change because the narratives around the voter registration will be different from you know, the participation in the election day. I see other contributions, I mean, putting in place more voters to submit themselves for the elections. And in this country, we have 22 counties that are going for a succession election, where the current governors are not eligible to, seek political office. And then this position of the member of the county assembly is attracting so many people currently, and the mobilization of the vote to come out and vote, we are most likely to witness a high number. And then I think at the national level, you see the political campaigns here. And like in 2002 and other successive elections that we've seen, you can see the dynamics are very different because the narratives, of how to bring people to come and vote. But as a result of other things that this country has gone through, like for instance, the COVID-19 and the loss of quite a number of people, we don't expect the same number of voters in the voters register. So there will be cleaning exercise of the voters register. So the other dynamics also will play around in terms of the number of people, who will come out, to vote. And I would like to conclude by saying that it is the responsibility of every voter, to come out, not necessarily to be coerced by a politician to come and vote in a polling station just because the politician has either promised something, but you are convicted to say we are protecting this country because the Constitution gives me power to exercise my mandate of voting and have the kind of the leaders that I would want to be served in an electoral cycle before the next election, because we are doing this for even future generation. But of course, there are other shortcomings that are there, and I like giving this example of the diaspora voters. They have been deliberately left out not to participate in elections. Whereas in other countries, they vote online. they vote by mail. Whereas the people who procure the immigration, permits, the passports for our fellow Kenyans to go to other countries is our own government. At the point of issuance of these passports, why would they not declare where they will be staying and even voting in that particular embassy of that particular country? A simple exercise. It's also the other question when we hear the electoral management body saying that it's a question of money For me, I don't believe that is money. It's a question of lack of political goodwill and also creativity on the part of the electoral management body to enable our fellow Kenyans who are outside this country to participate in the electoral process.
All right.
On that point, Akisa, just very quickly.
Yes.
The period between 2002 and 2007 is very interesting. Because if you remember, 2002 starts in January 20th, 2003, with Kenyans being the most optimistic. Because suddenly the old hegemon, the old ruler, the founding party, has faced electoral defeat. And the youth are happy and excited. Now, why were they happy and excited? They had been excluded. NAC came in with the language of inclusion. They had been told, you cannot change anything. NAC told them within 100 days, your constitution changes. Corruption is dealt with. And if you remember, actually, we the citizens were arresting police officers. That's what reward, that sentiment of reward does. It makes the citizen proactive. It makes them stiffen your spine and puff out your chest. By 2005, because of these little fights and exclusion and the return of corruption, you remember John Gidongo had to flee in 2004, right? Because of it, the referendum happens and the president's party coalition that was banana lost heavily to the coalition that was promising change. And because of that, you then a program and a campaign like Vijana Tukutuke gets traction because they say, you know what? Those guys helped us beat those who are holding us back. So let's vote again in 2007. Just for change. Just for change. But then they feel left on again. But that's it. If we can consistently show that pattern, that for the youth, change again is not like instant coffee. You don't put your coffee, and your sugar, and your milk, and your water, and suddenly there's no. So as I said, we must keep the narratives. So when, for example, Joshua is giving you facts about 2013, right? We must show that actually by voting, you've got change. Right now, no one is telling them that.
Yeah. All right.
So that needs to be.
I need us to take a short break. Let's hold on to that thought. We're way off to take a break. I want us to take that real quick. We'll be getting back to that. Also, just sampling a number of the views. Quite a number here. The hashtag is front row at Akisa Wandera at KTN News KE. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with more.